Hi, I'm Jeff Wilson. I'm President and CEO of Precipitate Gold Corporation, which trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol PRG. We are a junior exploration company focused on gold assets in both the Dominican Republic as well as Newfoundland Canada.
Jeff, nice to meet you. Thank you for the introduction. I will want to cover both sides of the business, the Newfoundland and also the Dominican Republic. So why don't we start with Dominican Republic? You've just put out some news on the joint venture you've got with Barrick. Could you just tell me a little kind of about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got an earn-in agreement with Barrick whereby Barrick has a right to earn 70% interest in our Pueblo Grande project, which is adjacent to their world-class Pueblo Viejo mine. They've got to spend $10 million US over 6 years and provide a pre-feasibility study in order to earn that 70%. We're entering into the third year here of the earn-in agreement, and Barrick has advised us on some of their exploration plans for the next phase. We're quite excited about some of the targets that they are targeting in this next phase of work, and it's sort of a combination of both near-surface epithermal style mineralization just immediately to the west of their existing open pits at Pueblo Viejo. And also what's quite interesting and exciting to us is they're also looking at targeting a concealed potential porphyry target as well at depth. So significant amount of groundwork, including some IP lines that they will be surveying over that area, as well as which is geophysics, ground geophysics, as well as trenching and reinterpretation of a lot of existing prior data. So we're quite keen on that. We expect them to advance this to a phase of drilling later this year, perhaps in the spring, summer, sometime like that. And hoping that we can get some interesting results about what might be there on our ground adjacent to that world-class mine.
They mentioned, I think the news release mentioned kind of up to 3,000 meters of potential drilling. And that's a possibility for later in the year. Have they put a kind of a cap on the budget that they're allocating to the joint venture this year?
The work commitment expenditure under the agreement calls for them to spend $1.5 million US between now and the spring. So we expect to see them get quite aggressive. I mean, obviously, the type of drilling that they would contemplate doing, we think will be quite comprehensive. So we think they can hit that $1.5 million mark quite easily. So combination of and that's all. That's not just drilling. That's just all the work that goes into this phase of work. So a significant amount of money would already have been spent through the geophysics and sampling and some of the additional work that they've done in preparation for drilling. But the drilling will be the real crux of the expenditure we expect.
And you say by the beginning of spring, which is a few months away, or I mean, it depends where you are in the world.
Yes, that's right. They should get that expenditure commitment satisfied by April of this year.
Goodness. Well, so the drilling is going to be done soon.
We expect it to be very soon. So the IP work that we talked about in preparation has been done. Quite frankly, the drill planning and plotting of drill locations has been done by the Barrick team. So we don't expect a lot more in the way of downtime before they're able to get that up and running and get that executed.
Okay, and they've got abundant availability of drill rigs because they've got their machines on site next door.
Correct. Yeah. So they've got access to all the necessary equipment there from Pueblo Viejo. So yeah, no real problems there in terms of importing, exporting, that kind of stuff. We expect the drills to be on hand and on site quite promptly.
What are their obligations on reporting? Because one of the features of working with the major is that they don't feel the need to report anything because it's non-material news for them. It doesn't move their dial, but it moves your dial if they hit something.
Yeah, we've actually found that our relationship and sort of data and information exchange with Barrick has been quite good. They've been quite transparent with us, quite frankly, about their plans and intentions and the work that they've done. Under the terms of the agreement, it calls for a quarterly update from them. So each quarter, we do receive a fairly in-depth report from them on the work that's been done and the work that's being proposed. We also, any approved budget for future work or plans that's approved by Barrick is advanced to us for review as well. So yeah, the and again, you look at the news release that we put out earlier this year about the work that's being done and some of the plans that they have. Again, they were quite good at recognizing the importance of that kind of information for our shareholders. And quick review of the news release, and they came back to us and signed off and said, "Yeah, no problem. Go ahead and report that." So they've been good, but it's a quarterly. It's mandated in the agreement to be a quarterly update.
So there's a possibility that they get the drilling done, and that would be reported in the next quarter, and then the results might come out in the quarter after that. I mean, just as a kind of a hypothetical timeline.
That's correct. I mean, having said that, there's they get time on the back of the end of each quarter to actually prepare the report. So there's a little bit of a time lag there between the quarter ending and the report being submitted, but I believe it's about a 45-day turnaround between the end of the quarter and receipt of the summary.
But it's funny because the life of a junior really kind of wants the news immediately. But even if it comes out later in the year, let's say Q3, it's still it's good to have the work being done by Barrick. And you mentioned that the way that they do things is very thorough. I mean, I've got personal experience of this when we were approaching Barrick with a potential target area that they might have some interest in. They set a whole series of recommendations to us on how they would like to see the samples taken and all of the work carried out. It's incredibly thorough. It costs a bit more, but it gets the data in good shape early on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's important for me to qualify that. Look, we really are not as Precipitate Gold. We're really not built to be a project generator or to the intention was not necessarily to do deals with majors as a passive partner. But, in this instance, we saw that this is a big land package. This is, there was the potential for there to be misses before there were hits. And we think that, given the circumstances, having Barrick finance this work and do, good science, systematic exploration to get these things to a drill stage, could have been fairly dilutive to capital intensive and dilutive to a junior company like Precipitate. And so, although we are, sort of obviously anxious at all times to get information from Barrick and to be able to advise our investors on the work that's being done there, we also, because we are not a project generator exclusively, we that sort of segues into some of the other assets that we hold, where we are 100% of operator. We are financing those out of our own treasury and giving ourselves a chance at ongoing news flow and potential catalysts outside of what Barrick may do with Pueblo Grande. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach here in the portfolio where Barrick is advancing that on their dime, but our other assets are fully funded by Precipitate.
And you've got another asset in the Dominican Republic.
We do. So our project called Juan De Herrera was the first acquisition that we made in the Dominican Republic back in 2012. And that's an asset that sits adjacent to a known resource there of about 3.5 million ounces gold equivalent. It's gold and copper, operated by a company called GoldQuest Mining, again, another Canadian junior. GoldQuest advanced that from discovery to sort of development stage very successfully. They brought on Agnico Eagle as a significant shareholder back in, I think, 2016. But that project has been stalled a little bit due to delays in getting an exploitation permit. Essentially, GoldQuest is looking to do, necessary geotechnical work to advance this to a pre-feasibility or feasibility stage. Sorry. And so we've elected to sort of sit on that ground adjacent to GoldQuest until such time as there's a little bit more clarity of path. And really, the delays there are, yes, they fall on the shoulders of the government because it's the government and the ministry that is not granting the permit or the license. But I think it's important to note that it's sort of a local issue in that the federal government has essentially said, look, we don't want any pushback from this if we grant this permit. So please, GoldQuest, go and spend some time dealing with the local community, with any local opposition, and try to get everybody on side with recognizing the benefits of this permit versus the detriments. And so there's been some time put into doing that. We've been rolling up our sleeves and trying to help GoldQuest on that front as well, believing that their success will be the benefit of all of us. So we've done a lot of communicating with the locals. with the ministry, with the mining department, try to help GoldQuest in achieving that permit that I think would then unlock the opportunity for there to be a significant amount of money redeployed back into that region through ongoing exploration and development of GoldQuest project.
Is this a classic kind of social license issue? I mean, is this the sharp end of social license to operate?
It is. I think that it's a little bit more complicated. Well, I guess every situation is complicated in its own way. I think what we've sort of identified is that it's less about a broad uh, sort of community opposition, and it's more about a couple of key loud voices in the community who, are decision makers or business leaders who I think, quite frankly, have their own self interests that they're looking out for more so than sort of the good of the environment. Or the community, and we're just having to communicate with those individuals so that everybody can see the benefit of mining operation, eventual mining operation, and what that can do for the region. So yeah, it's definitely, again, I don't think this is a Dominican Republic issue. If we were applying for a pipeline across Western Canada, I think we would be running into some of the same issues and have to put in the time to make sure that everybody understood the benefits or potential benefits of operating.
I hear you. I also know that these things can take an awful long time to resolve. So in some ways, excuse me, I think I'd just rather like to park that there and then move on to Newfoundland. I mean, I don't think there's much benefit in us discussing it. It will resolve at some stage, or it won't. And then if it's resolved, then you can come and talk to it to us in the market. But so let's move on to Newfoundland, if you will.
Sure, absolutely. So in Newfoundland, we, again, when we did the deal with Barrick, and because our Juan De Herrera project was sort of on hold, we recognized that as a junior exploration company, sitting idle and being at the mercy of someone else is not going to get anybody excited. And so we are a discovery team. We are built to go out and find something new and make discoveries. And so gold, looking at gold opportunities and where could we go outside of the Dominican Republic. We looked around at a lot of different places. We looked at British Columbia and Ontario and southwestern United States. Ultimately, Newfoundland and the opportunities that were presented to us there attracted us, not simply because Newfoundland had become at that time a fairly hot jurisdiction where Eric Sprott was financing, it seemed like, every junior company on the planet. But we liked the geological merit of a couple of individual projects. My vice president exploration, Michael Moore, had worked in Newfoundland in the past and sort of had an affinity for the geological opportunities there. And so we acquired the Motherlode project through a series of acquisitions that all culminated in one announcement. But we actually consolidated about 7 different property owners into a land package that was contiguous and about 16 kilometers in strike and had never been consolidated before under one operatorship. So it was quite an accomplishment to get that land package put together. And the attraction there was district scale potential. A number of prior showings. There had been some, there were some geochemical anomalies spattered throughout the projects, and there had been some prior drilling. Getting 10 meters of a couple of grams per ton, 20 meters of 1.8 kind of thing. There had been some interesting sniffs and some smoke, but nobody really been able to sort of put it all together. So we started out through, subsequent to the acquisition, we went in, we did good old fashioned boots on the ground. We did mapping and sampling throughout the project. We then flew an airborne survey over the entire project and delineated some geophysical anomalies through airborne work. Then went in and did some trenching and ground IP and vectored in on a few areas where we saw the geochemistry and the geophysics sort of pointing us to some anomalies. And what we found is that there was a surface Gaussian, a surface expression, quite well mineralized. There'd been grab samples up to 25 grams per ton gold off of that Gaussian. And so we identified a fairly significant eyepiece anomaly underneath that Gossan, and we recognized that none of the prior drilling in that area had intersected this chargeability anomaly. And so we went in and we've completed a first phase of drilling here, about 2,700 meters of drilling, 12 drill holes, and trying to intersect this geophysical anomaly to see whether or not this is mineralized enough to justify going back and following up, because it is open in multiple directions. So really, this is kind of a proof of concept exercise. We'd love nothing more than to get significant gold intercepts right out of the bat, but I think identifying whether or not this has some potential for follow-up is really the first key, and we should have those assay results back, we think, in the coming weeks.
And when did you consolidate the ownership? I mean, the work you've done, it sounds like a textbook systematic exploration approach. It's lovely to hear it. Is this 1 or 2 years work, or is it 3 years? How long has it taken to get to?
No, we actually advanced this quite rapidly. Again, I think because we the Newfoundland story really became the focus, because we had Barrick operating on Pueblo, Grande. We had Juan De Herrera on hold. So really, this was kind of the focus of the team, and so we advanced it pretty quickly, from really within about a year to 14 months from acquisition to getting ready to drill. And I think that's a testament not only to the asset and the opportunity, but also it's a testament to the streamlined processes of getting things done in Newfoundland, Canada. And I think that's part of the appeal of that region or that province for us was, yes, you can identify quite interesting prospects, but being able to get a drill permit inside of 6 to 8 weeks of application is a huge advantage to being able to create some momentum and get things done in a timely fashion. So we really appreciated that about operating in Newfoundland, and are hopeful that we have a justification to stay and do more.
And what's the geology show you? From your those 12 holes, what have you intersected? What kind of geological units or alteration styles?
Yeah, well, we're seeing we are seeing some alteration. I think we'll want to sort of see what we get back from the assay lab before we talk too much about the drilling. But yeah, I think the drilling went according to plan. We're fairly pleased with the process, if you will. We didn't have any real weather problems or issues, and as I said, I think we intersected or bisected sort of the types of targets that we were targeting. And again, at this point, we'll sort of see what the assays come back and look like when we get that back from the lab.
Obviously, if they're positive, that will lead to phase 2 and trying to find other targets of the similar style, and also drilling out that one, kind of a rational and systematic approach. If they're not good, you've still got cash, you've still got geological brains, and the world is your oyster, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a big part of the story here. So I mean, I guess to sort of finish that subject, yes, I mean, we are financed such that if we elect to re-engage, at Motherlode, there's more work, there's more targets to intersect, or we want to continue along strike, we're equipped to do that. Also, given that it's a Newfoundland project, we do have access, should we wish to utilize it, to flow through financing here in Canada, where we can raise additional money specifically for that project, often at a bit of a premium. So that's a nice position to be in. But yeah, we are sitting on somewhere near $7 million Canadian in the treasury. That's unallocated. All of our assets are owned 100%, with the exception of Motherlode, that does have staged option payments, underlying option payments, relatively modest. And so aside from sort of that immediate path of continuing on at Motherlode, or maybe deploying money to one of our existing other projects, should we elect to do so, with this money, obviously, and this money came through Barrick. We did a transaction with Barrick last May, where they needed some pieces of ground from the earn-in project, Pueblo Grande, that they saw as necessary for infrastructure for Pueblo Viejo mine. And so we were able to do a cash deal with them, where they wrote a check for $5 million US and we got a 3% NSR on those pieces of ground that were then tied in with their mining licenses. And so that was non-dilutive money. That's money that came into the treasury without us having to issue any shares. It's hard dollars, so we can deploy that in any way we wish. And so part of what we've been doing since May, when that transaction completed, is looking at outside of the current portfolio, what kind of ways could we leverage that cash into something accretive? Is there an acquisition to be had where a project that maybe has been orphaned or is not, company owner is not able to access the capital necessary to advance it, where we could come in and acquire that asset and have the cash to deploy on it immediately? Is there a M&A opportunity where someone's property portfolio and our cash with combined personnel maybe makes 1 + 1 = something greater than two? We've been looking at those kinds of things as well. So we've kissed a lot of frogs. We've looked at quite a few things here that for one reason or another just don't quite cut it for us, or don't get us excited enough to pursue. But we are still very much on high alert, sort of looking for opportunities to grow out the company, add value to the company by leveraging this cash into something greater than just having it sit in the treasury.
It's hard, isn't it? My goodness, I've spent time looking for assets, and I've got friends and colleagues who are on this on the same kind of approach. We've got some cash, we've got access to capital, we're looking for quality projects in a good jurisdiction where we can work. It's really, really hard to find the right kind of asset. And as you say, you kiss a lot of frogs.
Yeah, it is hard. And I think it was, I'll admit that I really, really wanted to execute on something, late last year or in the fall, because, the market was such that, everything was so depressed. And if you did have money, you really had an advantage, if you will, and things were undervalued, and companies that, and again, I said this, I believe I said this to Matt on one of these interviews recently. Some of these things were quite depressed, and it wasn't the usual case of bad management or the projects hadn't panned out. You could have acquired a great asset, put out great drill results, and still not really had the ability to access additional capital to keep going. So never did I feel as if in most cases it was an indictment on management. It was just the market we were in. So I really felt that, we wanted to sort of take advantage of that opportunity. But again, I also didn't want to act simply for the desire to acquire something. It really had to be the right thing. And sometimes the most difficult thing to do is to say no to these things because you feel this desire to do something. I mean, we're in the business here. We're entrepreneurial people. We're in the business of identifying opportunities and transacting. But I want something that's not going to be, flash in the pan. It's got to be something that I can feel comfortable standing behind in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, regardless of what the market sentiment may do in the interim. So, ticking all those boxes, and as you say, things like jurisdiction come into play. The world shrinks pretty quickly when you start to get critical of these things, and it does become a real challenge. So on one hand, I feel as if, I'd hope that we'd maybe done something by now, but on the other hand, I don't want to do something that we can't stand behind long term, and that takes time.
Thank you. It's so refreshing to hear someone talking so candidly about it. I do feel that even though the gold price has popped and that some metal prices have recovered and some equities have recovered, I still think that there are a lot of companies out there which are going to struggle this year to have the access to capital for the projects that they're looking to develop. So I think there is the door, it hasn't passed, the door hasn't closed. There's still very much a chance to find an opportunity of something that merits it.
Yeah, I mean, I've just spent better part of about a week here in Vancouver at 3 mining investment conferences back to back to back, and that was an interesting takeaway for me. The sentiment was fantastic. The attendance was far greater than these events last year, and commodity prices look to be strengthening, and there's this great sense of optimism. Having said that, to your point, as I watch my internet every morning, I'm not seeing a lot of grand financings being done, certainly in the junior space yet. So yes, the market has improved. There's a level of optimism, but we're not really seeing a flood of capital into the space just yet. So I think your point is well taken in that, things are better, but they're not. Everybody's not flush with cash yet. So we still have, I think, a competitive advantage in that we have money, and we can still continue to be open to ideas, and if something comes along that makes sense, we can execute.
Great. Well, good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing the results from the drilling from Motherlode. Fingers crossed that they're good, and of course, seeing when and if you find an asset that's worthy of your capital.
Very good. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.